Hey, what's going on, everybody? Another day of learning awakes us all. I can't wait to get to our guest today on hurdlers of adversity, inspirers, and maximizers of pivotal moments. I'm your host, John Register, and we are just going to have these great conversations. We've been having them like since last year. The pandemic was going on. LinkedIn granted us this LinkedIn Live, and so you got to do 2 shows, I think a month or something like that. And we just said yes, and that's what we did. So I am an international keynote speaker, and we work with business professionals to really help them hurdle adversity, amputate fear, embrace a new normal mindset to win the medals that are in their lives. So we are at April 22nd, and this is what day is this? National Earth Day. So it's Earth Day. Did anybody know it was Earth Day? I mean, I didn't know it was Earth Day today. I got up and I got up this morning and I live in Colorado, so I got up this morning at like 5:30, and I had to be in Abuja, Nigeria by 6:30, and I made it. Got there in time. By Zoom, everybody, by Zoom. That's what I zoomed around the world, and we had a great dialogue and discussion. But it was on that call when we were talking about some disability rights things that I found out it was with Earth Day. I was like, dang it. It just snuck up on me, I guess, for some odd reason or something. But this is Earth Day. And then also we are still in amputee limb loss awareness month. And so just want to make sure that we are still tracking on that. I did do a shout out to my great friend, April Holmes, on last week. So we want to check that out. It's fantastic. What was written up. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't write it. I kind of wrote it. I wrote a little bit, and then I gave it to somebody, and they actually put it up, and I like that a lot. I just say, "Oh, she has my voice. It's there. It's already up." I love doing stuff like that. So those that may not be familiar with me, I identify as a person with a disability. But on 5/29 in the afternoon on May 17th, 1994, I was one of the world's fastest hurdlers. I was on my way to officer candidate school, had a great career ahead of me, and I was going to the Olympic Games. And at 5:30, I was never going to run another hurdle in my life, except I fly over them now, as my friend Arjun says. And that was it. That was this whole kind of shift I had to do, and I was kind of going down this downward spiral. My wife Alice says to me, "You know what, John? We're going to get through this together. This is just our new normal." And it was with that new normal mindset that I began really focusing, 21 years ago, on how to really embrace it and then elevate in it using the mantra of the Olympic model: swifter, higher, and stronger. So that's kind of where we were. And then I started swimming for physical therapy, got so fast in the water, I somehow fluked up, messed up, and made the Paralympic swim team. I went to Atlanta as a swimmer. 4 years later, I relearned how to run on an artificial leg and won the silver medal in Sydney, Australia, setting the American record in the process and becoming the first American to jump over 17 and a half feet without a leg or a knee. So that was pretty cool. And then I started a Paralympic military sport program for the United States Olympic Committee, and kind of the rest is history. But so today, I want to introduce you to some people. We do it every week because all these individuals, they have done something similar in their lives. And that's why I like just interviewing so many people from different walks of life, because each one has a story, and you have a story too. You have a brilliant story that needs to come out, that needs to be shared with the world to help somebody else that's walking through what you're walking through, to help them overcome that, to give them a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. We can do that for each other, and that's how we build the course of humanity together. So just focusing on that. That's a true Earth Day. We want to build connection for the world. We want to push forward in this world space. So what about you? Thank you. I just want to know where you're watching from. I know, so we got a couple folks on right now. Where are you watching from? So please share. And then also, when you share where you're watching from, what is the past show that you've listened to that you like the most? I'd like to know which one that you're thinking about there for past shows. So last week we had a great conversation with Lori Ruderman. And I was like, did I pronounce your name right? She said, yeah. So it's like Udeman, except it's Ruderman. So I thought it was pretty good. People help others say their name. So rewind that show. She was dropping some gems. So just go ahead and rewind for that show. And I'm telling my age because I'm saying rewind the tape instead of just clicking back on your thing. Hey, Charles Carey. Oh my gosh. What in the nation's capital? Charles Carey. Man, I can't believe. Wow. I'm so thankful you're on, man. We're going to have a great conversation today. So I hope you get a chance to stay on. So last time I saw you in the nation's capital, we were right across the street from the White House. So I'm so thankful that you're on, my brother. And I got to call you when I get back to Oak Park. So that's awesome. So I'm glad that you're on. So let me introduce you to our guest today, because she is just she is a fortress to be reckoned with. She could have been a product of her environment. She could have been tossed in the towel and just given up. She could have played the pity card, but thank goodness she didn't. Instead, she used her upbringing as a ward of the state of Massachusetts, being told one thing about quote unquote our values, but seeing an entirely different story play out with systemic inequality as a tool she wields to fuel her fight today. I love this about her bio. Quietly trying to assimilate to the dominant culture, but always unable to do so without trading a piece of herself. Oof. She has worked with the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, the Broad Institute, Harvard Medical School, and others as a people ops facilitator. People ops, I love that. She now is the head of inclusion at JAMBB in Boston, which is a tech company working in the NFT blockchain space with celebrity contributors, and they are hiring engineers that love inclusion teams. So I know Charlie Carey, you're gonna be happy about that blockchain for sure. And then please welcome the author of Allyship, the definitive guide to building more inclusive, innovative, and productive teams, the one, the only, Ciruolo. Hey, my young lady, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, John, thanks so much for having me. Man, I'm going to hire you to do all of my hype going forward. Anytime I go out on stage, I want you out there first, telling everybody about what I do.
Absolutely. I'd love to do it. Yeah, for sure. I believe in your work. I believe in what you do. And
thank you.
We met a few weeks ago on LinkedIn. I was just enamored by how you show up and how you show up for others. And you are the very great author for Allyship, because we'll get into it, but I just wanted to just say thank you for that. And we definitely have in the nation's capital, Charlie Carey. So we got to shout him out. So Charlie's a great friend of mine. We won an award together in Oak Park for our alma mater. And he says, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I got to get him on the show, because he's just like he's a Chicago guy, Chicago guy.
Yeah. I know about that. I'm a Boston girl.
Chicago. He's fantastic. So let's unpack in your bio, because there's a lot going on there. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so much. Loads of questions came in for me. So we're going to kind of focus a little on foster care and how many, really don't understand the entire system itself. So when we chatted, you said you were the only one that like you.
That's right.
What did you mean by that?
So the only one like me, most of the kids that I grew up in foster care with, unfortunately, either have drug abuse problems now, or they have gone to prison now, or they are dead now. There are not people like me that have sort of transcended that circumstance successfully that I know of. So I unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to think about it, have to show up kind of as myself every day, because I want to be that person I needed to see as a kid that can show you, hey, don't worry about it. Keep going, keep driving, keep driving your own car forward, and know where you're going, because you're going there,
when you say that, that there's a lot of, I guess, I don't know if it's the right word to call it, but a lot of stigma around, foster care systems. And I know I've touched it on the very fringes. I have no, saying
Sure.
only because we knew, our family knew a person that was a foster care mom for like three children, and so we would help out, right? So
Mhm.
we just kind of share the load, and I saw a little bit of how the struggles of it and some of the stigma that happened. Talk a little bit about that, from just growing to school and just the
Mm.
everyday life
Yeah.
of a child switching homes, and help us understand the world that
Sure.
that you know.
So I was, and I don't tell this story very often. So if you hear me getting emotional, that's why I don't tell this. But I'm happy to talk to you about it. So I ended up in the foster care system when I was around 3 years old. And what initially happens is you go into temporary emergency care. An incident, basically an inciting incident, takes place, and you go into temporary emergency care. And usually that is facilitated by police officers that come to your home and remove you. So that was my initial experience with that.
Mm.
From there, my younger brother and myself bounced around the foster care system, often being removed from each other and separated. And then over the course of time, we had another sibling. My mother gave birth to another child who's 4 years younger than I am. And we were all separated and put into the foster
Wow.
care system. So eventually, I ended up in sort of what's considered long-term care, and you become kind of a ward of the state. My middle brother and myself ended up in the same home, thankfully. My youngest brother did not. That home was rife with abuse. It was really quite terrible, but because I was in a better school system than I'd ever been in before, I was sort of thinking this was as good as it gets. So a
Mm.
lot of the stuff that I was being told by my foster family and largely my school teachers was, be smaller, play smaller, ask for less, be grateful. Things could be worse for you.
Wow.
So as I live out my life now, kind of post foster care, the thing that I care about the most is showing up as me and showing people that you don't have to keep making yourself small to be palatable for people. And I think that's what we try to do, definitely as foster children and definitely as people who have survived any kind of trauma, is that we put ourselves into these boxes to try to make ourselves fit and be palatable for the greater community. And all we end up doing is losing those pieces of ourselves that we care the
Mm.
most about. So I would say that's what sort of brings me to the table and brings this fight to my door.
So, thank you for sharing that, and going
Yes.
deep in there. Are you all together now? I mean, like,
No,
you're
no,
no, your brother's
no,
still
no.
not. Mm.
So my brothers and I are not close the way siblings are close. My birth mother still lives in what are considered projects here. My birth father lives in, excuse me, Las Vegas, doing his own thing. And so I don't really have family in that way, but
Mhm.
I have been lucky enough that people have adopted me kind of as I go. And, like yourself and many other people over my lifetime just kind of find me and just, make me part of their life. So I've been really lucky in the friends I have, I guess.
I think that's powerful. And so you're gonna make me emotional now. So don't do that.
Please,
Stop. Stop.
let's just do it. Let's just
Stop
go
it.
for it. Let's get
um,
into it.
I think, when I think about adoption, it's really one of those. It on the surface, to me, it can kind of look kind of dark and ugly, but really what it's saying is, I desire you.
Hmm,
I really, I want you a part of
that's
our
right.
life. Yeah, and Charlie says it's all good. We're human, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's what he's talking about, right? It's that human when it works. So I'm talking about in the
Yes.
aspect of, I desire you
Mhm.
because I value you in my
Yes. You
life,
are
and that's,
worthy. I choose you.
I choose
Yes.
you, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
choose you.
That's right.
And so that's, and I think that's what it should be. I think that should be for all of us, are adopted in some way to something, a mentor or somebody has, that they
Yes.
say, I see value, and I choose you
That's right.
for that. So I like how you're saying that. And I guess that's one thing when I go back over your, that quote that I said, what you said, quietly trying to assimilate to the dominant culture. Talk a little bit about that, because you kind of just made mention of it,
Mhm.
and trying to play small.
Yes.
Talk a little bit more about the why is it a play small, and how can we really understand and blow that out for other individuals, and help them?
I think play small is kind of a fear of failure. And I don't think that's necessarily, just me or just foster kids. I think that's all of us. I think play small is something that small people say to other people. So for my mind, I mean, play small wasn't something that was healthy for me. It wasn't something that I could do. This is the only version of me that exists. I don't have like professional versions and then other settings. There's just always me. So, for my purposes, what mattered the most to me was the ability to start talking about what I had been through in a real way to help people come to the conversation for the first time. Like you said, there's that stigma attached to foster care. And that's felt through, that's felt by children through like being on free food programs, free lunch, all of those things. And that's felt in the school system. And if we aren't considering that, or worse, if we're singling that child out for that, we are making that experience 100% worse. And we largely see that in schools where we have greater percentages of, affluent communities. I was in a relatively affluent community, and after the parents found out that I was going to school there, they tried everything, which ultimately led to the school being redistricted when I was in 3rd grade, and I ended up at another school. Now, do I think that's entirely because of me? Do I think it has something to do with the fact that they didn't want certain types of kids at their very nice school? Absolutely, yes.
100%.
Absolutely, yes.
I mean, we see that. I'm sorry, I cut you off. So
no, please cut me off. Give me a break.
we see this in a lot of school systems that are kind of more what we call affluent, right? And so whether they're kids with disabilities, we don't want those kids over here because we're going to make our test scores go down.
That's right.
We don't want this other group over here because we feel, and so we don't. But then when it comes to Thanksgiving. We go to the community and look at the turkeys we supplied as we sing our songs around the Christmas tree and pat ourselves in the back on what a good boy am I. But
There's
we're going to fight
that too,
tooth and nail. I don't want them by my kids.
Nope, don't bring those kids to my kids. But I'm absolutely, thrilled to be part of you getting a great Christmas program or, whatever it is. But when it comes to the real stuff, we're unwilling to sort of transcend our lack of awareness or our inexperience or our fear or any of those things or our shame about these things and actually help for real. I mean, how often, literally the last 3 years has been all politics. How many times have you heard about foster kids? Ever? Not a single time. And we have over about roughly 500,000 children in foster care right now. And those numbers are going up with the pandemic as things get harder for people. So the fact that we're just totally not talking about this invisibility leads people to feel like they don't matter and their experiences don't matter and they aren't seen and they don't belong here. And whether we give them those messages either, out loud or not, or more subtly, it has the same impact regardless. And unfortunately, that impact is felt largely by children who are Black and brown. So, I mean, just the numbers of kids that end up in foster care largely tend to be overrepresented when we talk about Black children and Hispanic children. And the numbers are overrepresented for how they exist in life. So it's just, it's crazy.
What does it look like for Black and brown children, children of color, we can say whatever, around outside the United States? Because I see a lot inside the United States, a lot aren't adopted, but outside the United States, I see a lot of families going out. I'm going to go over to another country and bring back from Ethiopia or from Japan or somebody else, but we don't do it for ourselves. Is that a thing? Is that
within the foster care community, amongst us kids, we sort of hear the phrase a lot, everyone wants a puppy. So everybody wants somebody that they can sort of raise as their own in sort of their own image. People don't really want to take on other people's problems. And what I find the most interesting about that is with like foster care, domestic violence, certain kinds of disability, certain kinds of mental illnesses, sort of those types of things. There's this fake narrative around this, we accept this treatment on behalf of these people because we assume that there's a certain amount of choice in their situation in some way. Like, we feel like kids in foster care had something to do with their own situation and that maybe they're bad kids and that's why they're there.
Mm,
We see that in domestic violence where we say, well, why was she still there? Well, why
mm.
do we victim blame, you know? So
Right, right.
sometimes, and it's wild to me because we can't figure out what we think about the situation, right? We can't figure out whether it's so bad that we need to never talk about it or that they're just bringing it on themselves, right? So there's,
Wow.
yeah, I find that so fascinating, the way that the shame that we feel around the foster care system. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. Charlie says here, I've been by 2 families in my adult life. So that's powerful there.
Mm,
And then this person says, my adopted sisters always told me that she was chosen and she always felt wanted.
that's right.
So that's powerful. That's really good. So that's exactly what we're
Yes.
at talking about today. And we're talking with Ciruolo. What does Charlie say here? Taken in, yes, taken in, taken in.
Right. That's right.
You got
That's
to
right.
follow this guy. This guy is absolutely bonkers, crazy, great. So for we're talking with Ciruolo, and we're having a great conversation. If you're enjoying this conversation right now, please shout her out. Put her @ in there for LinkedIn or wherever you're looking at her this broadcast from. Please push her out there because more people need to hear her voice. Type in a statement that what did you learn? What have you learned so far in this conversation? We're at the bottom of the hour. What have you learned? I want to know what that is. Put that in the chat box. And then if you want to ask Di a question, go ahead and put that in there too. And I'll be looking at the chat over here. And I'm also looking up here on my screen. So if you see me looking away, I'm either writing down here, I'm looking over here, or up there trying to do stuff. All
Better
right.
you than me.
I'm trying to make it happen, Captain.
Yes. Yes.
So we talked about some of the stigma that goes along with the foster care system, and some of the turkey people, like what I call turkey people, right? So
The turkey people.
I don't call them that. I'm trying to think. It was Bill. There was another. There was a show, and he called them turkey people.
Oh,
what's
that
turkey
expression for life, though. That expression for life. I'm using it from now on. Turkey people.
It's a great expression.
Love it. Love it. Love
because
it.
I just come in, I give my turkeys, and I feel good about myself. And what did you do on Christmas tree? We sing, "Oh Christmas tree, oh Christmas." What did we do? Oh, we gave out 100 turkeys.
Yeah, these turkeys.
Oh, do they eat them? Yeah. So what are we doing this month?
Oh,
This month?
good grief.
January? February? Oh, I'm not sure. But November's coming.
November's coming.
March,
and then we'll know.
May. November's coming. June, July, August. November's coming.
Oh my goodness.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yes.
there are some marginalized groups who can choose to share their experiences or hide them. I'm brown man, cannot hide my skin color.
Right.
Cannot hide my I can hide my artificial leg under my pants.
Right.
So your skin tone usually can mask
That's right.
harshness of how you may have grown up. Why is it important for you to tell people that you're a graduate of the foster care system or in any other situation that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah. So a lot of people sort of see me and they sort of take the lesson away that, well, if you can do it, anybody can do it, right? Like that bootstraps narrative is still in place, that everybody in this country can just pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And the thing about that is, I mean, I just refuse to have my story be used for that, because it's so untrue. I mean, look at what I have to look like to have gotten out, to be able to be talking to you here today at the level that I'm able to talk to you at. Like, look how I have to look. Imagine the education, imagine the amount of work. That's not conceivable for everyone. I had a specific set of circumstances that allowed for me to be here. And one of them is the lightness of my skin. So I don't like for people to have that takeaway because it's unfair. It's so elitist and unfair, and it doesn't serve us. It only serves to let people sleep better at night, imagining that these systems in place are there for good reason. And that's just, I can't abide it. So sometimes, my dad is a brown-skinned Hispanic man. My birth mother is white Irish. So a lot of times I get well, why do you tell people you're Hispanic thing? And it's like, why wouldn't I? Like, I shouldn't have to hide. Me being me should be enough for everyone. But if it's not, then we need to talk about why. Like, we need to start talking about where these well-meaning questions are coming from that start these, really like horrible conversations for people. So, I mean, it's that mostly. I want to show up for real. And I don't, people give me that sort of offer all the time, like, oh, well, why don't you just have people, why don't you just do that whole thing and let people, if you be a motivational speaker and, let people know that they can just do anything that you can do. And I'm like, it's fake. It's fake. It's bad. It's unfair. It's toxic. And it props up systems that I want to take down. So, I mean, that's why, I guess I would say.
Well, so that's one reason why I stopped calling myself a motivational speaker.
Yes.
I mean, that's
right.
the first thing that people call me that, and I understand, I get it. But there are so many layers, and I'm not even just a speaker now. I see on my title I say catalyst, because that's mostly what people know me as right now. Like, my gosh, you changed this, you changed that. So I just lean into that, but I understand where people come from, and I believe that inspiration really is the catalyst to motivation.
Oh, of course. And I agree with that. But my work is in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it would be wildly tone deaf and silly of me to not recognize that I know why I'm here and that I know how I got to be here today with this ability to talk for people that can't be here today. And for my purposes, I take that responsibility really, really seriously. So, I mean, coaching and all of that awesomeness aside, because there are definitely people that are putting in that good work. But for me, I can't let you think that I got here because I just worked just so darn hard. I did, but not.
No,
not
I know you
that.
did.
You know what I mean? Not for that.
I'm going to get into that in a second.
Yeah,
I want to go back to
not for
something
that.
else that you said, which, because I know you worked really hard.
Yeah, I know.
And had that flip side, right? So,
yeah, I'm not here to say I didn't, for sure. Like, yeah.
So I was thinking when you said part of what you said triggered me on. I was at an event with at a friend of mine's his house with a lot of, before it was pre-COVID, before or I think when COVID was almost just starting, and I would take my daughter with me, and she's super smart. I mean, just really bright. And now she's 24. She's working at a school down. But anyway, she did an internship in Washington, D.C., working on net neutrality. So, I mean, the kids, and so she came from Colorado to do it. She's working for a senator. She's doing all these things as a very high level kid, right? I never aspired to something like that.
No, right.
But she's padding the resume and doing all this stuff and working.
Good for her.
She's fantastic. And so we're over at the house, and the woman asked my daughter in this kind of circle, so what are you going to do now that you graduated? And she said, oh, I'm thinking about law school. And she said, oh, what are you thinking about? Nice standard question. And then she said, well, I'm thinking about the Washington, D.C. area. So, oh yeah, what school? And she says, probably either Georgetown or Howard.
Right.
And then the lady says, why would you want to go to Howard?
Because it's literally one of the best
oh my gosh,
in the entire world, in literally the world. so
my dad radar was up, right? I was like, I was like, I went right into, zoned in. I did not jump in because that wasn't my place to kind of jump in conversation. So I was just listening now intently on how my daughter was going to respond. She did, a good job. And then I gave her some coaching afterwards. And I said, here's what you do when somebody asks you a question like that. You turn it back and you just say, I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Stop, full stop. And let them around all their friends have to scramble and struggle to talk about the racist statement that they just made and have to articulate it away. And just full stop. Don't, and just keep looking at it. I'll wait. Sip your wine. I'll wait.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
And so that's the, it's just one of those things. And Charlie's talking about, it's shallow when decisions are made literally on face value. Absolutely, for sure. And he'd know, because I won't get into who he is, but he's just like,
I'll take your word for it.
So yeah, and I think that's one of those things. I know that you put a lot of effort, and you went down to Atlanta to school,
I did.
and you really did some digging. So you know this space of diversity, equity, inclusion, and I always include the B for
For
belonging, because if
belonging.
I
Yep.
don't feel belonging, if I don't feel like I belong, then
That's right.
I'm out of there, right?
Yep.
So talk a little bit about your schooling around this topic, and how it amalgamates, how it with being what you call a foster care graduate.
I think we say foster care graduate as a euphemism, but like, the joke is implied. So once I aged out of foster care, which is basically when whatever your age of adulthood is in your state. So I aged out of foster care and I became homeless immediately. I didn't have anywhere to go. I had no resources. I had no,
Is that
you
is
know,
that typical?
about 20% of kids after the age of 18 will experience homelessness within the first 2 years. So yes, it's very, very common. So when I was homeless, all I had was sort of a laundry basket full of my stuff. And I was deciding that I was going to move across the country to Atlanta because it was so much cheaper to live there. And I was just like, you know what? And making that decision that you can only make as a teenager to uproot your entire life, move across the country and buy an apartment sight unseen. So I basically did that. I had like $600 saved up and I got my first apartment and I worked really hard and I put myself into therapy and that really changed the game for me. So, I mean, just that, and I'll tell you, if you have a sec, this a pretty funny story. What was actually happening was I was living in Atlanta and I don't know if you know the show, The Burt Show. There's this guy, Burt Weiss, and he has this big radio program. And he was going through something where he was talking about how his mother had been so toxic for him and how getting himself into therapy had been such a game changer because he didn't realize that adults could be not familial toward their children. And so he had sort of taken that on himself as a nod to his worthiness. And I just sat there in wide shock, just like, oh my God, I felt like I got nudged into my lane. And then the Tyler Perry calls in to the radio show because apparently he's a fan and tells exactly that story and says like, I had such a similar story and I got, you can't stay awake at night letting people take up space in your mind. They're not thinking about what they did to you when they go to
That's
bed
right.
at night. And it just nudged me
Yeah.
into my lane. And so it just changed the game for me. And I got myself into therapy and I started changing my life and I started driving my own car for the first time. And so put myself into college, all of those sorts of things. And then when I got done with college, I'm thinking, okay, this is it. I've made it. I can take any job I want. They definitely want me. And I couldn't find a job for the life of me. And anybody I tried to reach out to wasn't interested in interviewing with me. And it was like, but wait, you told me that if I did all these things and if I achieved this momentous milestone as somebody in my position, that, doors would open and they just didn't. So I got into
So,
this field
so you
because
pulled yourself up by your own bootstraps.
by my lack of bootstraps, right? And then I'm
And
able
what
to,
nothing
yes,
happened.
transcend my circumstances. And I'm still not privileged enough to get interviews at these places that I was seeing my Ivy League friends get interviews at. And I was just like, how can this still be? Your systems are lies. And it just changed the game. It changed the game for me. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's powerful insight. You had a group of friends down there in Atlanta that kind of adopted you,
Yes.
to help you
Yes.
along this journey, and really, when you're taking some of these classes to help talk about some of those. I think it's a different way we talk about adoption, right? How we can be engrafted in to something. Yeah.
Yeah, so Atlanta is about 51% Black. So when you get adopted into a community in Atlanta, it is largely Black. So I feel like part of me was raised by Black women who had seen in me what, maybe what I didn't see or what I was afraid to look at, and just helped me get out of that, helped me just transcend that. And it just, some of those people today are just so instrumental in the work that I do. And we share space for each other and share love for each other. So when I talk about allyship in my book, I'm not talking about allyship like I want to be your ally. I'm talking about I want to be with you when we abolish this. I want to be with you when the walls come down. I want to be here to your immediate right, fighting alongside you. I'm that friend that's like, ooh, die. We don't want to get involved today. We don't need to get, like when you look at that friend, like, oh, nope, we're not going to get in a fight. All right. That's me. I'm that friend that's like in there, that you got to settle down every now and then.
Oh,
So,
yeah, it's
so
interesting. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, please.
I say it's interesting to see what's happening in Atlanta right now, right?
Yes.
So you have this, and it's a fascinating, not even just a study, it's like live history. What's
Yes,
happening?
live history.
And so we're seeing these blatant voter
Yes.
suppression, blatant.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
this hasn't happened
Yes.
since
Yes.
Jim Crow era.
Yes.
And so then now the other side of it is like, how come we just lost the Major League Baseball game?
Yeah.
So people are voting with their dollars and how much they're going to actually bring into a community because you are suppressing a people. And like, well, I don't get it. How come, this law, we're supposed to protect the vote.
Yeah.
And they don't, there's just a dichotomy. And I think Mayor Bottom just said it, right? She said, we got to change.
Oh God, how awesome is she?
Oh gosh.
Yes.
So it's pretty fantastic. What's people are just voting with their literally voting and then voting with their dollars. I'm not going to have
not for the boycott because the people that I still know and love there who own businesses are definitely being punished, and those are largely Black-owned businesses.
That's right.
So, I mean, Georgia was the belle of the ball, 3-4 months ago? And we were talking about for the first time ever, folks showing up and voting in the efforts of Stacey Abrams.
Like, oh my gosh.
I mean, right? So like for us to say, we're boycotting Georgia now. This is what I mean about there being this rush to judgment to do things without there being any thought process about why we're doing it and whether or not that's going to harm the people we intend to help. So that's why DEI work is so much seeped in sort of anthropology and sort of a study of culture, because we can't just say, oh, boycott in Georgia now, because we're having a pandemic in Georgia. People are desperate for tourist dollars, and we're just writing them off wholesale rather than coming back to the table and figuring out how to actually solve these things. And it's heartbreaking to me. And that's my personal opinion, by the way. Not,
No, and it's hard work.
Yeah.
And people have, and so people only, I say it in my speeches a lot is we have these fears.
Yes.
And we're not able to articulate the object of our fear.
Yes.
And so we just articulate the object of what other people have said about the fear or what society says about the fear.
Yes.
But we don't do the work for ourselves.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
And then we have a knee-jerk reaction to something because we're not thinking for ourselves any longer.
Yeah.
So we have some people in here. Oh my gosh. This is a good comeback. Oh, that's the comeback for my daughter, Ashley. I'm sure that's what he says. And then my daughter is a double HBCU grad, Howard and Harry. All right. That's awesome. So we're talking to Di Ciruolo, and if you're enjoying this conversation, please shout her out in the chat box that you have there. And I want to jump into or ask her a question. We can ask a question.
Please, yes.
We got about 12 minutes left on the show, so let's
ask her
question. She'll jump in. I know it. She goes deep and she goes hard. She'll go hard. So be ready for the answer.
I do. Be ready for the answer if you're asking.
I just had her. I just put her on my buddy over in Scotland or whatever in England. So we had him on the shows earlier too. So, all right. So let's see. You talk a lot about allyship in your book.
I do.
You talk a little bit about impactful allies. So I wanted to know, kind of based upon your definition, like what is your opinion? I mean, help people that are watching this show now or might watch it later to understand what allyship actually is.
So, like I said, I work in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space. And what that basically means is that I am doing people operations and making sure that there is everybody's getting to the table. Everybody's opinions have value. Everybody can show up authentically, safely. Those are things that are in my purview. So I started writing a book in 2019 because I was tired of having these conversations that felt like having the same conversation over and over and over again. Like I'd be talking to a CEO and he'd say, "Oh, well, Di, of course, diversity, is important to us, but," and like my grandmother used to say to me, whatever you say after the word "but" is what you don't mean in a sentence.
That's
So
right.
they'd say, of course, we care about diversity, but we don't want to lower our standards over
Right.
and over and over and
Right.
over.
Right.
It's the same thing, right? So, of course, my initial response is, why do you think you're lowering your standards by including more people? Question one.
Right.
Question two is, we know that we are having white men in particular getting to our hiring pools with no additional help. How much extra work is it to make sure that other people have the opportunity to apply to your jobs? So it's really simple stuff. It's not rocket science here. But I mean, when I started writing the book, everybody was like, well, nobody's going to care about baseline information on, diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And my publisher was even, no, I'm sorry, not my publisher, my editor was even saying to me, Di, don't worry about the money you make on the book because it's such a niche thing. Nobody's going to care, right? So then, of course, I've signed off on all my paperwork. The pandemic happens. I'm now writing this book. I've got 2 children at home. My daughter is 3 at the time. My son is 5 at the time. I mean, just kids. He's doing kindergarten virtually. I'm drowning. And, then it's May of 2020 and George Floyd has been murdered in the United States. Then it's a totally different ball game in terms of what people need to know and the gap between what they know and what they need to know in order to continue participating in workforces, right? So
Yeah.
we saw a lot of sort of problematic behaviors happening where people were taking whoever they had as a person of color on their staff and promoting them to chief of diversity and basically making them responsible to unmake problems that they had been suffering beneath literally the week before. So with no additional power, money, or infrastructure. So we saw a lot of problematic things come of that.
Or pathway.
Right. My intent was always to just sort of have a baseline of knowledge that everybody could pull from so we could have these conversations in the workforce in a real way. And we knew what to measure, and we knew what things that we could do in each stage of the employee life cycle. And that was really my only intent. But of course, now in this very heated environment, it very much feels like going outside naked and just hoping that like you've done enough research to justify having an opinion at all. Because the work is so important and should be done in the right way. So, here we are, I guess I would say.
So give us, let me see, I'll put you on the spot here. 5 ways to be a better ally. 5 ways.
5 ways to be a better ally. Wow. Okay. So
you can go 3, 5.
You want to do 5 ways to be an ally at work, or you want to do 5 ways to be an ally in your community?
Let's do work for LinkedIn.
All right, let's do work for LinkedIn. So let's talk about, first of all, your hiring, your job descriptions. First thing that you can do is consider the fact that people aren't getting to your hiring pools. Be honest with yourself about who is not getting to your hiring pool. Make sure you are coming up with innovative solutions to target those folks and give them the opportunity to apply to your jobs, rather than just saying, oh, there must not be any qualified candidates of color or women or whoever your underrepresented group in your workforce is. Disability, exactly. Whoever is underrepresented in your workforce. Learn how to count your people. Learn how to count your numbers so that we aren't setting diversity goals that are like, be more inclusive, because how do you compare being more inclusive? That's not a realistic diversity
goal. Be a better mother.
That's right. Be a better mother. So what we need to do is we need to figure out what we need to measure, how we need to measure it, and how to target our goals, right? So that too, that's how we be a better ally. And I would say another thing, can we look at the same thing and recognize that that's what's happening? So what I mean by that is, can we all see a room full of people that have no diversity and say, okay, maybe we have a problem here, without feeling that initial gut reaction to have that shame response or that let's defend ourselves response or any of that? If we could just look at the problem and say, okay, this is a problem, let's iterate on solving it. That's how we be allies. And recognize that you don't need to be the boss of everybody else's personhood. That's another great way to be an ally. Not feel like your opinion is more valuable than the people who are actually like living that life. That's another important way to be an ally. Let those people, this is how you be an ally. Hold on. let those people take center stage, center themselves, and talk about the things that are impacting them and elevate them and prop them up so that they have a better platform for that exchange of ideas, because we need to be hearing from people who are being impacted by these policies at work, these policies in our communities, and these policies in our world. So that's what I would say.
I had a person tell me, thank you for that.
Please.
Tell me, now I may get emotional on this one.
Please.
Well, at least he made it out of there safe. That was in response to my son being stopped 2 weeks ago. This is just 2 weeks ago, when he went to go down to see his daughter in Texas, just to visit her, and because mom and dad aren't together, so he wants to be a good dad, goes down to see her, drives over from San Antonio in a rental car, and he's followed for 10 minutes or 10 miles, 60 miles an hour, 10 minutes, by 2 police officers in one car, and pulled over for failing to signal. Now, I don't know about you all out there, but if I'm being followed for 10 miles by a police officer, I'm probably doing everything right. So he gets pulled over. Good cop, bad cop. Good cop says, license, registration, whatever. And so they know when they run the plates, it's a rental car. That. Yes. Then the second is the good cop says, we're going to let you go off with a warning. Bad cop says, no, please step out of the car. And so he's like, for a lane violation, unclicks his holster, doesn't take the gun out, but unclicks it. Please step out of the car, sir. I mean, that's where we are. I mean, this is commonplace, and it's like it's every day. This is what happens on a Tuesday, right? That's the way I'm perceiving it. Not even perceiving it, but know it's for me in my life. And my father had the same conversation with me as I've had with my son to know, and even doing the right things doesn't warrant him getting out alive.
That's right.
So he gets out of the car, goes to the back of the car. Police officer then starts peppering with questions like, where are you coming from? Where are you doing? All these questions to try to trap him, to trick him. But fortunately he's gone to school in the area, so he knows the little towns that are around there. And you know where you're coming from. I'm coming from visiting my daughter. She lives in Uvalde. She lives in whatever the town it was. I can't remember. I can't remember. But anyway, so they do that. So they're trying to change the town names on them, right? So, no, she's from here. I was staying over here. And they said, well, you're going to this hotel in this city? He said, no, there's no hotel in that city, sir. I'm going to the next one over where there's a hotel. So they know he knows the area. So then he says, well, we're from a special police unit, which can search your car without your consent. So he's going to filing a complaint on it, right? But so that's what. So what do you do? The police officer has their hand on their weapon. It's unholstered or not. It's unclipped, right? And they say, we can search your car. That's like, okay, are you gonna say yes or no? And the friend I was talking to said, well, at least he didn't get shot. I was like, yes. So what are the policies that we have to do? So the only reason he gets out of this is because he actually has refereed basketball games in that area. And that's he knows actually, thank goodness he knew the person that was their boss. And as soon as he mentions their name, they stop. And this is what we see. This is what the community. So when people are looking at the Chauvin case, right, when he goes to prison and the reporters got the microphone in people's faces, do you think this is the beginning of change? We'll see. We got one in our win column, but how many police officers that were white that shot a black person never went to jail? Probably can count them on one hand.
Probably.
So it's we'll see. And so then right after it is we want to rest. We think we got respite from it. We get 2 more. 16-year-old girl, and we have Dante. So it's just 20 years old. 20 years old. Yep. So if that was
Micaiah Bryant, Micaiah Bryant and
Micaiah Bryant, right?
That's right. Yep.
So knife, whatever. Does that warrant 4 shots in you?
She was in foster care as well, so that hit me particularly hard because of the way that foster kids are kind of passed around.
Way to bring that back.
We consider ourselves siblings, so it is crucially important to me that people do not forget her.
Yeah.
or forget that, maybe she was having a bad day for the first, like I don't understand how. Okay, here's what I will say about this. I have seen a lot of officers going onto social media now and saying that the only person the only person who hates, nobody hates a bad police officer like a good police officer. I hear that over and over and over again. And I feel like if police officers could own that, there could be accountability. We could start talking about, okay, we're all on the same page that this was wrong, right? How
Yep.
do we get past this? How do we talk about policies? How do we start measuring the work that's to be done here? But this blue wall of silence is just allowing for more and more.
Mhm.
I feel like you can support. I feel like I support good police officers.
Yeah.
I don't feel that blue lives are the same as Black lives. Black Lives Matter is about Black lives mattering. Blue lives are not, those are jobs. Black
Right.
lives are people, blue lives are jobs. That's something totally different. Black folks can't take off any part of their identity in order to maximize their safety, as John has just clearly shown. So that's the difference. It's not that. And can we just be questioning in general why that's the opposition? Like, why is when somebody says Black Lives Matter, the response Blue Lives Matter, like we saw at Ma'Khia Bryant's death? Like,
Right.
why is that what they're yelling back? Like, what? What are
Right.
we talking about here?
Here we go with other people's opinions.
Yeah,
So I need to fit
yeah,
in the group. I need to belong to this
please.
group.
Yes,
And
yes,
society, I need to belong to what society says. And it's not an either or. I mean, my
it's
my
not.
cousin testified in the trial
That's
of
right.
Chauvin, and
Yes,
he's a Minneapolis police officer, right?
yes,
So he's
yes.
in there.
I have
And my
police
other
officers in my
cousin,
family. Yes,
yeah, was
yes,
he had Derek Chauvin was on he was his boss for a period of time, right?
yes.
So I get it from both sides. I totally understand it's a tough and hard job. So I'm not bashing it at all. But there are some things, if I come and there's a routine traffic stop, there's no reason for me to unholster my weapon to say get
No,
out of the car for a lane violation
no.
on a rental car. And
And
I
a
just
kid.
explained to you where I'm going.
Yeah,
That doesn't
yeah.
happen to everybody except for one
No,
particular people.
that's
So
right.
that's what we're talking about. So we're gonna wrap at that piece there. I know it's like 4 o'clock.
Okay.
You probably got to go, but I got to get
No.
into these 6 rapid fire questions.
All the time in the world for you, John. You take all the
Oh,
time you need.
oh my gosh! Don't make me cry. All right, here we go. You guys are gonna love this one. So we got folks that are on. I don't know who the Facebook user is, so make yourself known to me so I know who you are. All right, rapid fire 6. Dun dun dun. I love that movie. The Croods. Number 1. Did you know today was Earth Day?
I did not know today was Earth Day till significantly later in the day than I would like to casually admit. I did not know today was Earth Day until I saw President Obama's post about it, and then I was like, "Oh, damn, it's Earth Day!"
I knew very early, but I didn't wake up knowing it was Earth
No,
Day
no,
today,
not
so.
me. I'm way underwater when it comes to the news lately. So I'm just,
Me too. All right. Who do you quote the most when you talk, and what is the quote?
Who do I quote the most when I talk? I suppose who I quote the most lately is probably Ibram X. Kendi because he's so boss. Um, oh my God. Like every time he comes out with something, I don't know if you can see behind me. I'm just reading 400 Souls. I
Oh my
didn't even
gosh.
just read the book. I also bought the audiobook so I could listen to all the amazing actors that he got as part of the.
Holy gosh.
So, oh my gosh, so good. Ibram X.
I gotta-
Kendi, probably the most. Stacey Abrams, probably the
Stacey Abrams,
most.
yep.
Oh my God, Kamala. Whew.
Yes.
Lately, we've got a lot of amazing, amazing leaders out there doing the real work. So
I
I have
mean,
plenty of examples. Yes.
this is definitely a time right now to be paying attention because our children will be talking about this for eons
I
and
say
eons.
that all the time. Who are you going to be in 20 years when
You're
your
gonna
kids look
be
back and say, what did you do 20 years ago when you knew everything was wrong?
right.
Yep, absolutely.
This is the time.
This is the moment we're living in our
Moment.
history.
We
Yep.
are. Last city you visited before the pandemic?
Atlanta.
What is your favorite movie munchie candy?
My favorite movie munch candy. Oh, Reese's Pieces.
we can get along.
Right?
Okay. I just wish people would just shut up about what?
People would just shut up about hummus. Like, is that like an unpopular opinion question? God, I hate hummus. I don't know what it is about people. Like, I'm not down with chickpeas at all. Like, people are like cooking chickpeas and acting like that's a snack. I'm not down with that. Number one. Number two, cauliflower pizza. That's an abomination. Like, I hate cauliflower pizza. Oh my gosh.
Cauliflower pizza and
I
hummus.
hate it. Oh my God.
I guess that's not your movie munchy candy.
Don't bring that to me and tell me it's pizza. That's all I'm saying.
All right. And then finally, who do you know that who you would recommend for this live show?
Definitely. One of my best friends is an anti-racist educator, Brandon Campbell. She's amazing. I will definitely introduce you to her.
All right.
I have so many great folks in the DEI community. It is such a awesome, supportive, loving, thanks for being here community. And so like everyone.
All right. Okay. All right. Good. So
yeah.
if you were, so yeah, you can if you want to ask me a few questions, you can do that too. And then I got one more to ask you.
All right. So what do you want people to know about how to show up for you in the world these days?
I want people to know that there is no barrier around how I'm showing up for them. So, for example, people say, "What should I call you? Are you Black American? Are you Brown American? Are you an amputee? Are you disability?" I said, no, I'm John.
Mm-hmm.
How about we start there? I'm John. What's your name? So so that's what I want people to know, that let's get past the nomenclatures, because obviously it's not about seeing color, because you actually see my color because you're asking me the question in the first place.
Literally.
And so you can't come back and say, I don't see your color.
I don't see color.
Right? So because you just asked me a question wrong. You see my disability.
Right.
You just asked me about my amputation. So just how about what's your name?
Mm-hmm.
How about let's start there? What's your name? And I think that's what I would like people to do and show up.
What is your favorite guilty pleasure movie?
Ooh, guilty pleasure movie. I don't know if my guilty pleasure movie is actually my favorite movie, because my favorite movie.
Oh no, it's got to be a Razzie. It's got to be something that you got to defend to your family. Come on, you got to defend it to your family.
I know it's cool.
Yeah.
Be cool.
Be cool. I love that movie. I love Be Cool. That movie
every time it goes on.
So funny. Oh my God. I love that bit. It's Bernie Mac, right? Bernie Mac does he does a whole monologue about like how amazing like Black culture is and how impactful it has been. And how can you disrespect a man's ethnicity? Cedric the Entertainer. That's right. I haven't seen it in years. Oh my God. It's such an amazing.
I live for in that movie.
I love that movie. That's such a funny movie.
You just need to say thank you, man.
Yes.
Be grateful. Thank you, man.
I love it. I love that bit. Yes. I love that bit. That is such a funny movie. Yeah, I also guilty pleasure for me as well. Love that movie.
Uma Thurman.
That's a funny movie.
James. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious.
Say hi to my daughter, y'all. I love that movie.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
Oh my God, I am such a big The Rock fan. I wrote about him in my book. I put him in my footnote where I was just like, hey, The Rock, if you ever need to talk to somebody, I'm here for coffee 7 days a week. I love him. I'm such a big fan.
Yep. Be Cool. That's my movie.
I love that movie.
Ratchet movie. I like to.
It's an amazing movie. A great choice. All right.
So
what
cool.
else?
Okay. If you were to tell your 8-year-old self what you do for a living, how would you describe your business?
Well, I tell my 6-year-old son what I do for a living, because I might have come in hot on a couple of issues this past summer, because he told me that he wanted to be a police officer that arrests police officers that hurt Black people. So I might have come in a little hot on some information this year. So I have had to explain what I do, which was basically to say that I make sure that everybody has space to play in the sandbox, right? I make sure everybody's invited to play. I make sure that everybody feels like they can sit down on, at the lunch table together. That's what I do. And I make sure that everybody has the right tools and supplies to make sure that they can play too. So that's what I do.
Tonka trucks and they're playing
everybody
nice
has access to the best Tonka trucks. Everybody has access to the best sand that they need. That's what I do.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Di.
My pleasure. Such my pleasure.
Wow. What a great conversation. I want to see if anybody else said anything here. Oh, no one else said anything else. So I know we have time's far well spent, and I could talk to you all afternoon.
Oh,
so
I'll do this with you once a week, John, if you just want to
love it. We gotta have you back on the show.
Terrible movies we watch to like calm down from the world. Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. The book, give us the book that you wrote. And so we got a question that just came from Charlie. Maybe we can do that. Is the mindset all privilege, or is some of it immaturity or fear of the unknown?
The lack of allies, I assume that you're talking about. So is it privilege? Yes, a lot of it is privilege. A lot of times folks don't see what they don't want to see. There's this expression that a lot of times people are born on third base and they think they hit a home run. So there's a little bit of that. A lot of times people fail upward and maybe they don't see how hard other people have to work to get to the same place. But the way I usually visually demonstrate it is with something called a diversity walk, which is just everybody lines up on the same line and you kind of give prompts, take 2 steps forward if your parents are still married, take 2 steps forward if you're, so that's the way I sort of demonstrate that there are different kinds of privilege, right? So there's clearly white privilege, which doesn't mean that it doesn't mean you never had to work for anything. It just means your skin color wasn't one of the things holding you back. And then there's privilege where you lived. Maybe you came up in an affluent community, the way your schools were funded. All of those types of things are part of privilege and different kinds of privilege, right? So I would say that, yes, it's privilege, but these systems are designed to be largely invisible, right? That's how they operate. And this cone of silence that exists around them is very much intentional. So if you think about what we learned in school versus what we know now, I mean, at some level, some of this is indoctrination, if we're honest, right? So yes, I do think it's a little bit immaturity. It's a lot of bit not wanting to expend energy on things that don't impact you personally, and that's a sad way to live in general, I would say.
Yeah. So she made a baseball reference, Charlie. Chicago White Sox. Let's go. We're doing great this year. So we got to beat the Boston Red Sox.
I have no opinions on sports. I'm sorry to not show up as. I'm sorry to not be that person. I wish I was, but I'm just I have other things.
Yeah. So I cut you off because I wanted to. Charlie saying Yankees.
Oh, all right. Well, I know enough not to. I know enough to not be for the Yankees.
So talk. Just help us with your book, and then I'll wrap the show up.
Sure. So the book is Ally Up. It's available at allyupbook.com. It has hundreds of interviews of folks who work in tech, STEM, academy, which is university system spaces, and sort of the invisible systems that and the invisible barriers to entry that they've sort of come up against. So, and I sort of weave that in with just maybe over 400 research studies about sort of stereotype threat and all of those things. But overall, the book is just at every level of the employee life cycle, ways that we can be doing better and showing up for people that we say that we want here. So, it's very much about how we put our money where our mouths are.
Awesome. And where can we find it, and how can people find you?
allyupbook.com. That's where my website is at. That's where everything's at. And you can hire me, talk to me, discovery call me, ask me to join your podcast, whatever. I'm around.
Charlie's put it in the chat. So thank you, Charlie, for doing that. Appreciate that.
So allyupbook.com.
Allyupbook.com.
Yes.
Book.com. Okay.
Allyupbook.com.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks, Charlie.
Well, Di, thank you so much for being
on
today.
My pleasure.
We'll have to get you back on again.
Please, anytime.
And, stick around for a couple of seconds. I'll wrap the show up.
I'll hang out.
All
yes,
right.
please. Thank you.
All right. All right. So, wow, what a conversation that we just had with Di Ciruolo. Just could talk to her all day long. As I'm sure you can see, her personality is just like awesome. We want you to remember about what's coming up in the next few shows episodes. We'll get to that. We have a great conversation next week with Simon Javon Okola. He's doing all these African proverbs and blowing up on the new platform Clubhouse. So he's doing a fantastic job with that. So we're going to talk to him next week. And remember, my two favorite quotes are, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." That's by Anais Nin. And then, "When truth outweighs fear, we commit to a courageous life." You are the inspirations. Inspirations are the catalyst to motivation. Motivation in turn causes actions. Actions then lead us to transformational results. And these results, they re-inspire us or allow other people that are watching the process to catch the vision. So we say to you today, go forth and inspire your world. We'll see you back here next week on Hurdlers of Adversity, conversations with inspirers and maximizers of pivotal moments. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.